All right, so tonight I want to talk about taking the name of Yahweh Elohim in vain. You know, it's one of the 10 commandments about not taking his name in vain. So what does that really mean? So I want you to think to yourself and ask yourself, what right now, what do you think that means? You know, what does it mean to take his name in vain? We're going to get into this. We're going to discuss it a little bit. Before I get into that, I want to remind you of a reading out of Psalms 73 in the Greek Septuagint, but it's actually Psalm 74 when you read it in the KJV. And it reads a little bit differently in the KJV, and you really don't get the full meaning of what it's saying. But in Psalm 73 in the Greek Septuagint, which is a older version of scripture that it was translated directly from the Hebrew into the Greek. It says that they have burnt thy sanctuary with fire to the ground. They have profaned the habitation of thy name. They have said in their heart, even all their kindred together, come, let us abolish the feast of Yahweh from the earth. We have not seen our signs. There is no longer a prophet, and Elohim will not know us anymore. Now, this is a powerful scripture. You can't really see it in Psalm 74, but the enemies have come. You know, in Psalm 73, in the Septuagint, the enemies have come against Jerusalem. They have said in their hearts, let's abolish the feast of Yahweh from the earth. All right, so their whole goal is to eliminate the appointments of Yahweh. We talked about that yesterday, just eliminating, if we can abolish the appointments and the rehearsals and all these things from Yahweh, then we end up saying we have not seen our signs. This is so powerful. So that their whole goal is to do that. So, in that light, I want you to keep that in mind too as we talk about this lesson. So in Exodus 27, he says, one of the commandments, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh thy Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless to take his name in vain. So what does this mean? Not take his name in vain. Let's look at the word take. Thou shalt not take. Oftentimes we'll just skip over certain words, but take is a very important word. It comes from the Hebrew word nasa, which I believe is where NASA comes from when we talk about our NASA space program. But it means to lift up or to bear, to exalt his name. And he's saying, don't exalt his name, the name of Yahweh thy Elohim, in vain. Well, what does vain mean? It comes from the Hebrew word shav, means falsehood or nothingness or worthlessness. So he's saying, don't hold up my name, or don't lift up my name or exalt my name and attach it to something false or worthless or empty. So to not take his name in vain means basically tell the truth about him. Don't attach his name to something false and worthless. And that's why Yeshua comes along and says, they worship him, must worship him in spirit and truth. Do not take Yahweh thy Elohim's name in vain. Don't lift it up to attach it to falsehood. So I'm going to use this as an example of what it is to attach his name to truth and to attach it to falsehood. What's the difference? All right, so when we studied the tabernacle, we went into the tabernacle and we studied the Ark of the Covenant. All right, so we looked at the Ark of the Covenant, and of course, when you see the tabernacle here, it's the last piece of furniture that you get to in the Holies of Holies, this Ark of the Covenant. You can see it right here down in the corner of the screen. It's a nice box covered in gold, inside and out. It's got acacia wood that's in between the gold. And he told them, make it in the pattern that I have shown you. It's the last piece of furniture that you get to, but it's the first one that he tells us we need to approach in order to have a relationship with him, because this is where the mercy seat is. And he said, if you want to meet with me or commune with me, you got to meet me at mercy, right? So he talks about this piece of furniture, and he talks about having it borne if they're going to carry it around, they got to have it borne. And it's the same word, nasa, that we're talking about, to take up, to lift up, to bear up. All right, so in order to carry it the correct way, you have to bear it up. You have to lift it up. Why? Because he wants to attach his name to this thing, and it's pointing to the truth of who he is. All right, so it's okay to lift his name up as long as it's attached to truth. All right, so let's look at it. When we studied this, these are the things that we came up with, prophetically, that this Ark of the Covenant was pointing to. All right, when we look at the tabernacle, it pointed to the fact that, Yeshua or Yahweh was going to come down in the form of Yeshua, and he was going to dwell with us. So he tabernacled among us. That was the whole purpose of the tabernacle, so he could dwell among his people. When we look at the Ark of the Covenant, we talked about the wood, the acacia wood or the shittim wood that was made out of this acacia wood we talked about had wood always points to humanity in the scripture. So when you start interpreting things prophetically, wood points to humanity. So we know that Yeshua would come down in human form, and the acacia wood itself was an impenetrable wood, had almost no enemies because it became very hard and the enemies couldn't penetrate it, couldn't be compromised, couldn't be defeated by his enemies. So we determined that was a characteristic of our Messiah. He came down in human form, but he was like this acacia wood, that he, wouldn't be penetrated. Even though he was tempted in all manner as we are, he still, came down without sin. And we also determined that this same wood, they used the sap of it for healing power. So we know that Yeshua came down in human form, wouldn't be compromised, and he was healing and doing all these great things. We also saw the acacia wood that was covered with gold within and without. And so when we study the gold in scripture, we realize this gold points to deity, to the deity. And so we know that he had, the Holy Spirit on the inside, and he had the Holy Spirit on the outside covering him. He was completely covered in the Holy Spirit from the inside out. So the wood or the flesh that he was in had the Holy Ruach on the inside and on the outside. He was covered within and without. And then we saw that this ark was crowned, and it had crowns, a crown around the edges of it. And we know that our Messiah was crowned both before he was crucified and before he returned the second time to dwell again with Israel. We see him also crowned in the book of Revelation. We talked about the rings and the seals and how they point to him having all power and authority. We talked about his authorities in both heaven and earth, and then earth representing, when it talks about the Ark of the Covenant had the four corners. We looked at that when it was born up, that he has to be exalted in his work as what he did in his flesh as Son of the Most High. And that's what the staves pointed to. We looked at it in the Hebrew and all that good stuff. And so we deduced that the staves represent that he's got to be exalted for the work that he did in his flesh. And then we looked at it, and that it had the testimony in there. He put his testimony inside the ark. And we know that his testimony is prophecy, which is told through the law of Moses, the Psalm, and the prophets. We also saw, because he put Aaron's rod that budded inside of the Ark of the Covenant, that it pointed to the priesthood. It pointed to that he was the high priest, that it was pointing to, because when Aaron's rod budded, you had the bud, the blossom, and the fruit. You had a threefold thing going over there. You had the almond, which was the first thing to come to life at the end of winter. It's the first fruit. And we know that Yeshua, we've talked about that before, him being the first fruits of our resurrection. So we talked about the manna that was in the golden pot, and we understand that he's the bread that came down from heaven, that gave life and fulfilled it in his body. So we know that he was the bread, came down from heaven. We didn't recognize him when he first came. And, so that manna was striped. We saw that. And so we understood that that was pointing to our Messiah as well. All right. We knew that he was single-handedly fulfill the whole of the law, and that's why he put the tablets on the inside of it. And on top of it, he had a mercy seat, and they would sprinkle the blood on the mercy seat. And the law was inside the mercy seat, and it was covered by the blood. And so he had kept the law, and he had shed his blood so that we can approach him. And he told us to meet him at mercy. And he also had two witnesses on top of this Ark of the Covenant, and two angels who had spanned their wings across of it as a witness to the one that would shed his blood. And we saw these two angels when Yeshua had died. We go to the New Testament, we see the two angels that were there at the tomb who had witnessed the shedding of the blood. So we looked at all of these aspects of it, and we had a whole lesson on it. I'll put the link in the description section if you want to study that lesson. But this whole Ark of the Covenant was pointing to our Messiah. So this is why he said that we can bore him up, that we can take him and lift him up, because his name is on this thing. All right. And it's okay to lift him up as long as his name is on it. Right. So, but when we get to other texts, we see that if we don't do it and we try to attach his name to it, and we don't do it the way he wanted to do it, it can have grave consequences for it. So we're going to go to 2 Samuel 6, and we're going to look at an instance of this. And this came at a time when David had been fighting a lot of wars. He had Saul had been defeated, and so now David was being crowned king over the entire nation of Israel. Before he became king, the Ark of the Covenant had been lost, I believe, to the Philistines, and David had decided to go back to get the Ark of the Covenant. All right. And so it said that David gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000, and David arose and went all the people that were with him from Baal of Judah to bring up from thence the Ark of Elohim, whose name is called by the name of Yahweh of hosts, that dwells between the cherubims. So I just want you to look at what this said. So he's going back to get the Ark of the Covenant, and he's saying, he's calling it the Ark of Elohim, and then he gives it a name. And the name of the Ark is called by the name of Yahweh of hosts. And then he says that Yahweh dwelleth between the cherubim. So this whole Ark is pointing to his name. This goes back to that commandment we were talking about. He said, and they set the Ark of Elohim upon a new cart, and they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, and was in Gibeah, and Uzzah and Ahiah, the sons of Abinadab, drave the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which at Gibeah, accompanying the Ark of Elohim, and Ahiah went before the Ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before Yahweh. See, because the Ark represents Yahweh. They played before Yahweh on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and on psalteries and on timbrels and on cornets and on cymbals. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the Ark of Elohim and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Uzzah, and Elohim smote him there for his error. And there he died by the Ark of Elohim. And David was displeased because Yahweh had made a breach upon Uzzah. He called the name of the place Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of Yahweh that day and said, how shall the Ark of Yahweh come to me? So David would not remove the Ark of Yahweh unto him in the city of David, but David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite, and the Ark of Yahweh continued in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. And Yahweh blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. And it was told King David, saying, Yahweh has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that pertaineth unto him because of the Ark of Elohim. So David went and brought up the Ark of Elohim from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with gladness. So here we are in this scene. David is excited to go get the presence of Yahweh back and bring it back into the nation of Israel. And they go and, you know, they're excited about him, but they got their worship wrong. All right. And they put him on a cart. They put him on the cart, and he was supposed to be born up. When they put him on the cart, of course, that created a situation where you know, the cart was shaking and all this stuff, and now the ark is about to fall off. And Uzzah tries to stop the ark from falling. And he didn't handle the situation the right way, because it was the priest who were supposed to lift up the Ark of the Covenant so that it would match the commandments that the Most High had given, because he didn't want you to match up his name with something that was disobedient. All right. And because of that, he was struck. David didn't understand it. He was afraid. And so he took it somewhere else and let somebody else handle it for a while. But when he saw that Obed-Edom was treating the ark the way it was supposed to be treated, it was lifted up the way it was supposed to be lifted up, Obed-Edom's whole house was blessed. And so David got his confidence back in Yahweh, and he went to retrieve the ark. He said it was so that when he bare the ark of Yahweh and he had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed oxen and fatlings. So he understood at this point how he is supposed to approach this thing. And so every 6 paces, he began to sacrifice oxen and fatling. And so it took them a while to get there, because every 6 paces they were sacrificed. And why? Because they understood the ark with the mercy seat on top of it. I'm going to meet you at mercy. This is where the sacrifice, this is where the blood is going to be sprinkled, is Yahweh. We're going to lift up you, because it's pointing to the work that the Messiah was going to do. And it says, so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of Yahweh with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of Yahweh came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Yahweh. She despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of Yahweh and set it in that place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahweh. All right, so now he's worshiping and lifting up Yahweh in the manner that's correct. And even in the midst of him doing the correct thing toward Yahweh, the people closest to him despise him because it doesn't look like they think it should look. And this is what happened to his wife. And because she despised him, he realized it, and he didn't even go on to her. And they said that she was childless because she couldn't have a relationship with the king because she didn't understand worship. All right, so we got that situation. So David understood at that point that if he put the right thing with Yahweh's name, things would work out. But if he didn't, things would not work out. All right, let's go to Exodus 4. Here's another example. So Exodus 4 is when Moses is about to bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. All right. And Yahweh is having conversations with Moses, and he's saying, this is how I want you to go and deliver. So he tells him that, he said, what is that in your hand? And he said, I got a rod. He said, I'll tell you what, cast it to the ground. And he cast it to the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it. And Yahweh said unto Moses, put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. And he said, they that believe that Yahweh Elohim and their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared unto thee. This is what's going to make them believe this. All right, so prophetically, what is this pointing to? This is pointing to the work of Yeshua. All right, and you say, well, how can a serpent and how can a rod represent, you know, the work of Yeshua? And we'll build on it as we go along. But in short, the rod represents the authority of the right hand of the Most High. All right, and the authority of the right hand of the Most High was cast down to the ground. So this is a picture of Yeshua being cast down, because he said, no man taketh my life. He said, but I lay it down. And so we see the laying down of the right hand of authority of the Most High. So Moses lays it down. When he cast it down, it became a serpent. Why did it become a serpent? Because Yeshua was cast down for us, because he became sin on the cross. Okay, so what does sin look like? It looks like a serpent would look. And so then he told him, he said, put forth your hand and pick it back up, take it by the tail. And he picked it back up, representing in figure and type the resurrection of the Messiah. No man taking my life, but if I lay it down, I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick it back up again. This is what Yeshua said. All of this is right here. So this rod and the casting down and the serpent, all these pictures and stuff pointing to the Messiah, the right hand of the Most High. He says, sit here at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. He comes down, he is cast down, but he said, if I'm cast down, I pick my life back up again. He takes on the form of a serpent when he takes on our sin, and then he picks himself back up again with authority. This is awesome stuff, right? So this is why the rod, the handling of the rod, is pointing to the right hand of Yahweh. All right, so let's look at this. Exodus 7. And Yahweh said to Moses, see, I have made thee Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. He said, I'm going to make you look like a god to them. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of this land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth mine enemies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh. Now listen to this. When I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. Now he's talking about, now he's actually stretching his own hand. So what Moses is doing is while when he stretches his hand, is really the Most High actually stretching his hand out. And Moses and Aaron did as Yahweh commanded them, so they did that. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spake unto Pharaoh. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying unto Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did as Yahweh commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men, the sorcerers, and the magicians of Egypt. They did also in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods, and he hardened Pharaoh's hearts, that he hearkened not unto them, as Yahweh had said. So here's the scene again. All right, so we see the casting down of the rod, the right hand. It's still the same picture. He casts it down, comes down, it's picture Yeshua being cast down. He said, but if you cast it down, you take my life. No man taking my life, but I'll give my life. And like, if I do, I'm going to come back and take it up again. So that's pointing to him. He becomes a serpent, representing he takes on our sin. But then the other rods are a picture of the other authorities, the Egyptian gods, and they have power too. And so they throw out their authority or their power that has caused mankind to sin. And what does our serpent do? He devours the other serpent. So in other words, Yeshua is taking care of all the sin that even the higher powers caused us to commit. He's taken away it all. Right. So we see that even in this rod that we're talking about, the rod of power. All right, the right hand. And he said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refused to let the people go. So get unto Pharaoh in the morning, You know, and he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's brink when against him when he comes, and the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thy hand. I want you to take that same rod. This rod represents something. I need you to take this same rod. It's got my name on it. And thou shalt say unto him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has sent me unto thee, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou was not here. So thus say Yahweh, in this thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in my hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. All right, and the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink of the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke unto Moses, saying, Aaron, take thy rod and stretch out thy hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, rivers, and upon their ponds, upon their pools of water, that they may become blood, that they may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river turned to blood. The fish died, and Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river. The blood was throughout all the land. And so magicians tried to do the same thing, and they were able to do it, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened even more. All right, so he's telling them in this scripture that when you reach forth your hand, I'm actually reaching forth my hand. This rod is a picture, a shadow of me putting forth my hand. Every time you lift this rod, I'm lifting my hand. All right, so we take this same rod, this rod of authority, in Exodus 14. And he said, but lift thou up thy rod and stretch out thine hand over the sea and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground throughout the midst of the sea. And as long as he stretched out that rod, representing the right hand of the Most High, because he was asking at first, why are you standing here gazing? He said, pick up the authority that I gave you and stretch out thy hand. And so he did that, and he parted. The same rod, when they came to, in Exodus 17, to the rod from the rock, and the people were complaining because they were thirsty, he told him, take that same rod. You know, the same rod that was cast down, the same rod that became a serpent, same rod that's representing, taking on the sins and swallowing up the other serpents. The one that you took back up and picked back up again, representing the resurrection. He said, that same rod, I want you to take that rod, and I want you to smite the rock. All right, so he did that. Then this last one took the rod. And they were fighting against the Amalekites. The Amalekites came after them. They came from behind. They were dirty in how they did it. And Most High told him, he said, you need to go out and fight the next day against the Amalekites. And he said, Moses told Moses to stand on top of the hill. And he said, I want you to hold the rod of Elohim in your hand. And I want you to hold it up. And as long as it's being held up, like it's supposed to be held up, you're going to win the fight. But if it begins to drop, you're going to start losing the fight. And so he was saying, how you apply my name to this thing is going to determine the authority that you have in warfare. You got to apply my name the right way. All right. So this next one, we talk about the calf, the golden calf. And this is when Moses had went up into the mountains, and he was getting instructions from Yah. And while he was up there, the people began to murmur, and they said, we don't know what happened to this guy. Y'all brought us out here to die. And so Aaron, in his zeal, he's trying to appease the people, and he's trying to come up with a way to calm everybody down, because he knows he's dealing with a group of stiff-necked people. All right. So he gets with him, and he says, okay, y'all give me all your stuff, and we're gonna make a molten calf. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, these be thy Elohims, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So they made themselves a god. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamations and said, tomorrow is a feast to Yahweh. So not only have they made them gods, but they have now changed the feast day. They have made their own feast day, their own appointment to Yahweh. Change the calendar, just like we talked about yesterday. That's what the enemy wants to do. Change the appointments. And they don't match up. And he said, and they rose up early on the morrow, offered burnt offerings. You know, it seemed like that's a good thing, right? Burnt offerings, brought peace offerings, and people sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to play. And it was a feast to Yahweh, right? It had his name on it. And Yahweh said to Moses, go get thee down, for thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. In other words, they put my name on something that was not true. They have corrupted my name and put it on something that's vain, something that's corrupt, false, and not true. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed thereunto and said, these be thy Elohim of Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And Yahweh said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. Matter of fact, I'm going to get rid of everybody except you, Moses. And I'm just going to use you because you're the only one who has done what I've asked to be done. I'm going to take you and create me a whole nation out of you. This is a picture. This is another picture of the Messiah, because the Messiah is the only one who kept the commandment. The Messiah is the only perfect one. And so this was looking forward to the time when the Messiah would be the only one that could please the Most High. It's out of him that we were all born again, that he created a whole new nation. So he was foreshadowing through that statement what he was going to do through his son. But it was a terrible event because we took Yahweh's name and put it on something else, created a whole new feast day and created whole new gods and put Yah's name on it and said, it's okay to do. And Yah was not pleased. And he's the same today as he was yesterday and forevermore. So we go back to this Psalm 73, and this will be the last slide. He said, they have burnt thy sanctuary with fire to the ground. They have profaned the habitation of thy name. They have said in their hearts, all their kindred come together. Come, let us abolish the feast of Yahweh from the earth. We have not seen our signs. And that's what we did when we were coming out, and we created our own feast days, put Yah's name on it. And as you can see, Yah was ready to make a whole new people out of Moses, because we created our own system of worship, because we put his name on something. We lifted his name up and put it on something that was not true. So we go back to the beginning and we say, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh thy Elohim in vain. And we see what the word vain, you know, to lift up, take the name, to take the name means to lift up, exalt it, and then put it up on something that's false, that's a lie, is one of the commandments that we are told not to do. So when we begin to talk about these holidays and holy days that the world has, and we begin to talk about traditions of the world, and we look up the word tradition in the Greek, and it adds up to 666. And he's asking us to stay away from the traditions of the world, because we're putting his name on something that's false. And he's saying, don't take my name and place it on something that is false, that has not changed. He wasn't pleased with that then. He's not pleased with it now. And he's going to deal with those things. This is why the earth is going to shake and reel to and fro, because he's got to deal with the false worship. He's got to take those who are his and say, listen, I'm not going to receive false worship from anybody. I don't care what your pastor say. I don't care that you call it Resurrection Day now, but you celebrate it on the exact same day as the Catholic people told you to celebrate it on. It's still the same thing. The fact that you changed the name is really an admission that you know something is wrong, but you refuse to cut away from it. Y'all get what I'm saying? It's an admission to him. Well, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna not call it Easter. I'm gonna call it Resurrection Day. Y'all give him. This is serious. This serious business. He's gonna correct this. So I just wanted to say that we may look at a few more examples here as we go forward in the next few weeks. But that's what he really means by, taking his name or lifting his name up, exalting his name on something false, taking his name in vain. So is that what the concept that you guys had when we began to talk about taking his name in vain, or is it different? We'll open it up for questions or comments. I didn't want to keep you all too long today because, like I said, we had a session yesterday.
I only thought it meant when people say, "Oh my God," and stuff like that. That was in vain. But you pointed it out. I see now. I see now.
Yeah, and so that's a good. I'm glad you said that, because we've often heard that, right? People say, or you use the word GD, or they say, whatever. And we say, oh, we're using God's name in vain. But then when you look at it, we wasn't even using God's name. We were just using the title. God is not even his name. You get, it makes sense. So they even took his name out, so we couldn't even use his name. All right. So yeah. So I'm with you. So I'm glad you brought that out. Who's next? Dietrich.
Shalom, everyone. I was gonna say I heard a teaching a couple of weeks ago, just to dovetail on what you just said, that there are a lot of verses in the Bible that Yah tells us to call him by his name. And his name is, it doesn't say that his name is not the Lord, but his name is not the Lord. His name is not God. He has a name, but we have always inserted Lord or God, which is a generic title, for, they're the House of Lords in England. Those people are considered lords. So yeah, but when you're brought up in tradition and you don't know, you don't think about that. You just go with, I guess, what you're taught.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're kind of taking his name and we're not even using his name. So I just heard that on a teaching a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when I realized, several years ago that they had just completely took his name out, and that it wasn't what they were saying it was. It blew my mind. How do you just take his name out? Every other nation, their gods have a name, but then they took our Elohim name out. He don't have a name. He just God. What sense would that make? All right. You have anything else?
I was just gonna say, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name of the law. I don't want to mispronounce it. If anybody else knows what I'm talking about, please say it. But at one point, I guess I don't know if it was the Catholics or the Jews were saying that his name was too holy to say it, and they deemed that they pronounced the law, and that's why we don't, say his name. But all along in the word, he talks about calling on his name, proclaiming by his name.
Yeah,
but I couldn't think of the name of the law.
Yeah, and that was part of the trick. We'll have to look that one up too. I'm not sure which one it is, but that was part of the trick to keep us from calling his name. Yeah. So there's power in his name, and salvation is in his name. So they did a good trick on us to keep us from even saying his name. All right, Chanel.
Hi, I just wanted to piggyback off of what she was saying, sister was just saying. For me, I can definitely say that since I started using his name, my prayers have been answered so differently now. Like it drew me closer to him, but it seemed like I connected so much more with him now that I use his name. My prayers have been answered every time, like mostly every time. So it made a difference. Using his name for me made a difference. And I remember on one of your teachings, you said try using his name when you end your prayer and see how different. And it has made a total difference. When I tell you a lot of things have changed in my prayers, like things have been coming and he's been showing me and I've been, he's just been blessing me. I feel it's because I've been using his name more. I was ignorant before. That's how we were taught, that God, and then you realize that God can be anything to them, but when we use his name, there is power. And that's how the enemy works. He tried to keep us from using his name because he knew that power in that name. It's worked for me.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's powerful because, and you can see it once you realize what false worship looks like. And then when we apply his name to a false system, you can see, or we don't use a name at all. We just say God or whatever. We can be worshiping anything. We know not what we're worshiping because we got a system over here that's not his. And now we're using a name that's not associated with him, that's vague. So we're not talking to him. We think we're talking to him. We're in the mountains. We worship in the mountains, right? Like the lady at the well. We think we're talking to him and it's our intent to talk to him, but we're talking to something else. And we don't want to admit, that that's the case. We just want him to be the Elohim that accepts everything. Everything is okay now. He just accepts any kind of worship because, Jesus did it. So, but, Yeshua had a requirement. He said that the worship must worship in spirit and in truth. All right. Shannon?
Hey, Brother Kendall, how you doing?
Better than I deserve.
I know, me too. I was just thinking about what you were saying about Resurrection Sunday too. Even though people say that they're not doing the Easter thing, they're not. That's what it's almost like they transition into something else, but they're doing the exact same thing. So I don't use that word Resurrection Sunday for Easter and things like that, because that's what people are doing. It's like they trading off for one name for another, but they're doing the exact same thing. And like you said, that's very true. God is not going to accept that. Yah is not going to accept that at all. He wants us to be on the right track. Whatever his word says, that's what he wants us to live strictly by his word.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good. I'm glad you brought that back up again because, all right, so if we say Resurrection Sunday, and we have a whole nother system over here, and he said he's going to use, the name of Jesus or the name of Yeshua, whatever name you use as Messiah, whether you use the English or the Hebrew. He said that there's going to come one who's coming in that name, whatever name you use. And he's going to appear like Tammuz to be the son of a god. We see that in the book of Revelations where Apollyon is the son of Lucifer, basically. He's going to appear to have had a miracle birth, just like they're prophesying on their holidays. And according to the book of Revelation, he's going to have a resurrection. Now, if you're going to fool the whole world, wouldn't you have a resurrection on Resurrection Day? Because that's what the whole world is following, right? Resurrection Day. You may not call it Easter, but Easter and Resurrection Day are the same day. It's not Feast of First Fruits. That's when Yeshua got it on First Fruits. So it's masking a deception when and it's still setting people up to to be fooled when you begin to substitute names in there rather than just doing what Scripture said and saying, hey, these are Yahweh's days. These are his appointments. These are his days. You know, Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. That's it. Why is it so hard? Why is it just such a hardship to say that? Think about that. Why does the system reject those names so much? And it's in the scripture, in the book that they hold on to. And every time that Yeshua did something, he brought up a holy day. It was so many days before Passover. It was so many days before this. It was so many. And he always uses his appointed days to set the time, even in the gospel. But we don't want to talk about it. Why?
Sometimes I think that some of these pastors, you know, they think that they're on the right track. I'll say this and I'll let you go, but I think that they're on the right track, but they're still kind of afraid to walk away from that. That's the reason why they call it another name too. I think that's what it is, because they're, you know, like you said, just kind of masking it anyway, you know.
It's the compromise. It's the compromise. And it's the lukewarm compromise. And Yeshua said when he come back, he put it in his mouth and it's lukewarm, he's gonna spit it out. I need you to be hot or cold. I need some all-in people. Either you're gonna be all in for the enemy or you're gonna be all in for me. I just need some all-in people. Whatever side, choose you this day who you're gonna serve. You're gonna serve him, serve him. You're gonna serve me, serve me. But what I'm not going to do is allow somebody in who got their foot over here with him doing a little bit and thinking they over here doing a little bit with me, because that lukewarm stuff, I'm spewing it out of my mouth. He said, I would rather have some cold people who will not follow me, who will convert over, because I know if they was all in on that side, when they come over to me, they're gonna be all in on my side. So this is what Saul, he was all in. I mean, he was persecuting believers. He was all in. He thought everybody was wrong until he got stopped, you know, on the road to Damascus. And he realized he was all in on the wrong side. But when he flipped over to the other side, he was all in on the right side. So y'all need some all in people. All right, Patrice.
Sorry, got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Okay, so Psalm 73, where it talks about changing the feast days, that was Israel who changed the feast days initially, correct?
No, it was
Or was it?
that was the enemies that came in and changed the feast days, who said, let's change the feast days. In Psalm 73, yeah. Because because he's talking about coming in and now have we done it before? Yeah. But he was talking about the enemy coming in. Yeah, the enemy coming in and burning the temple down and all that type of stuff, and you know, trying to abolish our feast days as well.
Okay, well, we created a feast day. Aaron created the feast day when they put their jewelry in and made the calf. Is that right?
He just created the whole feast day. Yeah.
Okay. And the second thing, where does people saying the Most High told me this, does that fall under taking his name in vain too, for attaching something that they're saying to do with that's not true with the most, that falls under the same category?
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah, because we're saying we're attaching his name to a falsehood.
Okay.
Yeah, and people often use him to justify something that they want to do. And then they say the Lord, you know, told me to do this. And you guys say, okay, well, you know, and I had, you know, people tell me that, and then I show them in the scripture where, well, this is not of his will to do what you're saying. So why would he tell you to do that? So what Lord is telling you to do this? But yeah, I mean, you know, you can use his name in vain. You use his name and say he told you this and he told you that. And that's, you know, you see that all through the prophets when Jeremiah was dealing with people and he was telling them, don't go, you know, y'all need to leave Egypt. And then the false one would stand up and say that, Yah had told them something different and that they were going to be blessed and stay, where they were and all this. It was false prophets rose up all the time. But they ended up in the destruction that happened because they were putting lies on Yah's name. That's an excellent point. All right. Did y'all have something else?
Yes, two things.
Okay.
Not to glorify this, but just wanted to make note that that law, or that I thought it's a doctrine, it's called the ineffable name doctrine. And it's a doctrine that teaches that we should not pronounce Heavenly Father's name because of its sacredness. I just wanted to give the right name of what I heard in that teaching. And then second, bouncing off of what Patrice just said. So if we feel like we are led, or we feel that Yah is revealing something to us, and we're in conversation with someone, if we're not to say the Most High told me this, I mean, how are we to say that? How are we to communicate that we feel that we are receiving some type of revelation from Yahweh in our personal life, so that we're not in danger of taking his name in vain?
Well, I mean, I always wait on witnesses. For me, it's a lot of things I could teach on, and I think, and it's true, but I don't have my witnesses. You get what I'm saying? So I need my witnesses, because he's gonna confirm everything. He said, "Let it be established with 2 or 3 witnesses." So I would be careful to just start going out so quickly and telling people what the Lord told me. I mean, how is it going to benefit them anyway? If it's for you, keep it to yourself for a while. Make sure you confirm that it's him. And then once he confirms to you, then you can share it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people do that, and it's they said the Lord told me this. I see people all the time. Women, their parents told them don't marry this guy. He ain't no good for you. They come back and say, "Well, the Lord told me that this was who was for me." All right, and then they go out, they get married, had ladies start hitting on their head. Some, I don't know, some crazy start happening, and then they are finna get a divorce. And then all of a sudden, well, we thought the Lord told you that this. Nah, the Lord telling me I need to get away from this man. Wait a minute, we got some confusion. Did the Lord tell you to get with him or not? Y'all get what I'm saying? He's not the author of confusion. So we place these things because that's what we want to do. And the Lord said it. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be real careful on applying his name to something. All right, James, you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a very good question. Okay, that was a very good question. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that was a very good question about the Lord told you to do this, the Lord told you to do that. And Kendall, I totally agree with you. The Lord doesn't tell us to do anything out of the character of his word. It's very important to know his word. And so, and discernment and understanding his word, so we can know that that's out of the character of Yah. And let me go to the scriptures to look and see if this has any connection with the scripture and with the truth of God's word. The scripture says that that the Lord confides in those who love him. And the scripture also says that if you love me, you will obey my word. And it always takes me back to the book of John. I think it's the 3rd chapter where it says that if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciple, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And so I think it's what it is. I think it's an abiding with the Lord and in the Lord is spending time with the Lord as He helps us and enables us to actually hear His voice. And then after we hear Him, we don't necessarily need to say that, why the Lord told me this, the Lord told me that. He confides in those He loves, and we have to confide in Him too and receive what He's telling us. And like Kendall said, watch. Let's just stop and not do anything, because it's Yah who's doing it. It's not us, and we'll just see. And we can test the spirits, we can test ourselves, and we can know whether this is truly from Yah or not without speaking, because everything that Yah tells us to do, he doesn't want us to go and say it or blab it out and say anything to anybody about it. He sometimes, I think we may be tested to see that he will say something to us or tell us something and see our reaction, see how we handle it, because he confides in those he loves. He doesn't, I don't believe he wants us to, as he confides in us, as we spend time with him, I don't believe he wants us to go and just tell everybody, because it's him who's doing it. And I think what's important is the closeness, developing the closeness and the relationship that we have with him, the closeness and the intricacy, the intimacy of the relationship we have with him. He wants to know also, you know, he tells us what are we going to do with the information. And so he confides in those he loves, and it's between us and him. And we can look and see whether that was from the testing the spirits. Look and see whether that was from Yah or not. Look and see if that happens. And if that happens, then we can rejoice and say, thank you, Lord, for communicating with me. But at the same time, we're developing that intimacy between us and the master, and nothing should get between that. And sometimes when we say what the Lord has revealed to us, sometimes it can be something in us, an arrogance in us, recognition in us, and not giving him all the glory and all the praise, because we can do that secretly in our heart, to give him all the glory and all the praise. And unless the Lord tells us to go and tell somebody this and tell somebody that, I think we should give him the glory and all the praise, and point that information to him, and that intimacy and that closeness to him. So he confides in those he loves, and if we love him, we'll continue in his word, and we'll continue to spend time in intimacy with him. And I think that's the important thing, that we're drawing closer to the Lord, and our personal relationship with him. I think that's the most important thing, and not putting it out in the air or anything else. That intimate relationship with the Lord is what's the most important thing that I think that concerning that matter.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and I've found too, that even if I'm sure of something that he told me, and I've shared it with somebody, I create sometimes another vessel that the enemy can work through to try to cast doubt upon what the Most High has told me.
Yes.
I hope you get what I'm saying. And so he'll work through people closest to you after you confide in them, like Joseph, and you tell your brother that dream that the Most High gave you. It created an enemy for him by sharing what the Most High said. So we have to be careful You know, when we do that, be wise and ask ourselves, why do I need to share it? What's the purpose of me having to share these things? Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. All right, William.
Hey, shalom, Kendall. How you doing?
Shalom, Art. Good to see you.
All right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the conversation we had the other day about taking his name. I mean, in Ezekiel, where he was going to come for his name's sake and save his people.
Mm.
But like even with the analogy you gave about them carrying the Ark of the Covenant, if you look at the Hebrew Nasa, Savah, Nasa means is translated as to take. But if you look at NASA, it's the same word for NASA, but it's to lift up, to bear, or to carry with you. So the way you carry his name is very important. And the people of Israel carry his name. And through our actions, we have profaned or made his name empty, or made his name or take away the power of his name. That's kind of what Shavah means as well. Shavah, the Hebrew word for vanity that is translated, it's also to consume the authority of, to take away the authority. So we take away his authority by the actions that we do when we are carrying his name. And I kind of like the analogy. I like the analogy how you said carrying the Ark of the Covenant and how they carried it wrong and they brought death on them. But the people who carried it right, they was able to carry it and bring life and bring, Obed-Edom was able to be blessed by carrying it properly. And if we carry his name properly, we can be blessed in everything that we do, Kevin. So that's what I wanted to share.
Man, that's good. That's good stuff. Consume his authority. I love that. We consume his authority. William, this is the guy I was telling y'all about. This is one I was telling that got the cards and all this stuff that I learned quite a bit from. So I'm glad he was able to join us. All right, Dante, Cherie.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
Just real quick, I just wanted to say that, I'm very thankful to the Most High Yah for our awakening experience, because, there were years where, every time we would step foot in, whatever service we were at, it was always God told me, not us, someone telling us, God told me. And I'm thankful now because whenever I hear someone say that, even if they are a good friend of mine or a close friend, the first thing that comes to mind is, who are you listening to? Which God are you listening to? Because, are you saying something that's from Elohim? Or are you saying something that's from your emotions and from yourself that you are putting the title God on, and something that's part of your ambitions and not part of God's will and purpose for you? And so it's really important that we are able to discern now, because someone, if you don't know, just by someone having a microphone and saying God told me, they can toss you to and fro and have you doing everything, going every which way and believing everything they say, and your life will be in chaos. And I'm speaking from experience, because that was us, that was me making poor choices based on God told them something about me, but Yah ain't said nothing to me.
Right.
And so and you said something really, really important that I think that needs to be emphasized, is that just because Yah shows you something or tells you something doesn't mean he's telling you or showing you to tell everybody else. There's certain times he'll say, now's the time for you to speak, or he'll open up a server, and you'll know when Yah opens up that window or that opportunity to say something, because you'll see it, you'll know it. You'll hear that you'll feel that nudge, and you'll hear his voice, and you'll feel Holy Ruach push you in that direction. But a lot of times Yah he'll show us things, he'll give us dreams, he'll give us visions, he'll speak to us, and a lot of times it's for our good first, before he wants us to start just saying, what Yah told me today. No, I've been pushed back and forth and made so many bad decisions in my life from God told me, and listen to everybody saying God told me. So now I'm thankful to the Most High for discernment, to be able to listen to somebody. My face may frown a little bit, but I'm not anxious to do what God told them. And, I'm waiting for Yah to either show me or confirm that what they said is not true and is a false prophecy. So that's
I would like to add on that on our first date, I know I heard the Most High tell me Dante was my husband, and I did not tell Dante.
I would have ran. I wouldn't have stayed. I would
Yeah,
have been like,
absolutely. First day, you know, like, wait a minute, hold up. What you talking about?
I held on to that for almost
Yeah.
2 years.
So I hadn't even
I'm glad
paid for the
you
check
did.
yet.
Right. And look, and then when she heard it, I was at the ATM, so you know, I've been like,
See, that's why you got to hold on. See, he just confirmed
hold
everything.
on.
Yeah, you know.
right.
And so it goes back to what William was saying. To consume his authority. We don't lift the name around. We consume his authority. It opens the door to the Most High allowing a lying spirit to come among us. And when a lying spirit comes among us, it sounds like the Most High. You get what I'm saying? But the door is open to that lying spirit because we're not carrying his name the way we're supposed. And that's why he said he was going to allow Israel to go into the situation that we've been in, because we've been listening to lying spirits for so long because of our disobedience. And so I'm like, I used to say, listen to the same thing. And I'm like, man, y'all talk to them a lot.
Right.
I'm like, man, he talked to them about everything. He told them what color socks to put on and all this time. I'm like, what? I said, what kind of relationship they got? I'm like, I'm missing something. He's not telling me all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it took a while for me to figure out that they just talking, you know. I don't know who they're having a conversation with.
Right. I've had that same thought. Wow, God talks to them every day, every minute, every day, and don't say nothing to me. You know, I've had that same thought.
Yeah, Mr. Matt.
Good evening. I hope you're doing well. It's good to hear your voice.
You as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good to hear everybody. God bless you. I have a question, a point of curiosity that I wonder if you might answer for me. Years ago, I was doing a study on the disciples and the names of the disciples. It was around the time that I discovered that when I was reading Bar, the surname of Bar, it wasn't actually a name, but it was actually an identifier. So you have Simon Bar Jonah, which means the son of Jonah, Simon, the son of Jonah. But when I got to Judas Iscariot, I discovered that Iscariot was not a proper name, but it was a location, it was a destination inside of Edom, close to Jerusalem. And so it became apparent to me that when the scriptures were speaking of Judas Iscariot, it wasn't a first and last name. It was actually Judas of Iscariot, or Judas from Iscariot. And so my question is a curious one, because when I saw something very similar when we're reading the name of Obed Edom, and I thought, is it possible that this is not so much a first and last name, but as we characterize first and last names, but it's actually a designation or an identifier of Obed, meaning Obed from Edom? And if that be the case, then is it possible that what the scripture is describing, pictorially speaking, when the ark went into Obed Edom's house, who was not of who may or may not have been of the children of Israel, so to speak, blood lineage, that it was a picture of the Most High, that it is a picture of the Most High being willing to bless even other nations, or how he would bless other nations who had not been born of Israel when they approach him and treat him with the respect that he deserves by not taking his name in vain. If you'd be interested in answering that question or taking a shot at it, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be the case prophetically. You know, I gotta go back and I gotta look at the names again, but I definitely believe Judas was actually an Edomite. You know, and that he was chosen to do what he did. And so when you look at his name and where he came from and all these, you know, I believe he was a convert. supposedly a convert, but he was chosen for a specific purpose. Obed-Edom, that's a good, that would be a good analogy, but you see that picture all throughout the scripture. I just got to confirm now that it does go to like other nations other than Israel, and they become blessed by the presence, of the Most High. So that's I think it's a great analogy, great thought, great insight to look at it that way.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Hudson.
Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
So, I have a question, or not a question, just a statement of what my experience was. In the past, I started working for a church. I was doing video editing, and everything was great. I'm not even gonna lie. It seemed like it was the perfect job. Then I started seeing things that was going on in the church, and speakers come, people called prophets, and things they were saying going contrary to the word of God. And then I was confused of why these things, why is this happening? Why are things going on? They would give say prophecies on things. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. Because if God is going to talk to you first, anybody comes saying stuff is supposed to be a confirmation to you. They may not know what's going on with you, but at least it's supposed, God is not going to talk to somebody about you without talking to you first. And I was praying that I need to find a job to get out of here. That's what I was praying. And this lady pulled me into the pastor's office when I went to go get a name for the message that they would be speaking, so I can go ahead and start creating the different things that needed to be done. And she was like, the Lord said, you go ahead and do it. Go to school like you want. Now, I didn't say anything to anybody. And I attributed her saying that because when I would be to myself, I would talk out loud. And maybe, the demonic spirits listening to what I want, trying to confuse me, because I was unsure of which route I was going to go. And when she said that to me in front of these people who did not know that, that I wanted to leave, it caused a commotion afterwards. But after that, I was so confused, because I was like, well, first of all, is God telling me? Because I'm praying to God to give me an answer. What should I do? And this lady, who I believe is not a prophet, not telling people to divorce and telling people to get together and different things like that. Not coming from a point of I'm communing with God, like she said, had said something to me, and it put me in a perplexed state, because I'm like, is God using her? Like God used the donkey, or is this the enemy trying to confuse me and doing something that God may not want me to do, and I'm waiting on the answer. It was a troubling time for me. So, and I say all that to say, and I can be long-winded, do apologize. When we are searching and seeking God's face, should we be talking out loud, where that our enemy who's in the spirit of the air can hear?
I mean, it's best not to,
Okay.
Unless you speak, if you're speaking in a prayer language or whatever, but it's best, like I said, not to do that. At the same time, if we're praying, in the spirit toward Yah, the prayers of the righteous are covered in the smoke as it rises up to go to the Most High. So it shouldn't be a problem if it's sincere, prayer like that. So, and also our spirit maketh intercessions on our behalf, so it's a lot going on there when you start talking about prayer and the incense of prayer and the smoke going up before the Most High that disguises your prayers to him. So I don't think that it's a major function if we're praying in the right spirit.
Okay. So I'm trying not to overthink or overanalyze everything, because I can be an overthinker sometimes.
Yeah. So
thank you.
I mean, but the enemy is going to try to hinder everything anyway. So I mean, you think about Daniel, when they were coming close to the end of the 70 years and he prayed, it was obvious that the enemy knew he had prayed and was still trying to hinder the response. But the Most High heard his prayer the first day, and he was sending the messenger back to Daniel. But it said that the prince of Persia held up the messenger or the angel that was coming back to give Daniel the answer to the prayer. And the only way that angel that was coming back to give Daniel that answer to the prayer was able to get loose was that the archangel Michael had to come and fight off the prince of Persia so that angel could come back and give Daniel the answer to the prayer that he was looking for. So, I think my concern would be having sincere prayer, making sure I'm having sincere prayer with the Most High.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. All right, that's good stuff. All right, any other questions or comments?
Kendall, can I ask a question about the bones of Christ real quick? Okay, yesterday with the study, with the with the communion that we took, right? I wanted to I was watching the video again, and I wanted to ask the importance of the bones not being broken. Christ, does that have any relation to us as the Most High using our bones again?
Well, I know in the prophecy, of course, even in the Passover Seder or whatever, you couldn't use a lamb's. They had to have a shank bone, I think, at the Passover Seder, right? But it couldn't be broken. So then the Passover lamb couldn't be broken, because it would imply imperfection in the lamb, because the bone would be broken, if that makes sense. So it couldn't have any of the bones that were, that were shattered or broken or anything, It's just the imagery that would point to. But then on the second part of your question, yes, the bones are the only thing that's going to be used in our new bodies. So when the Most High reconstructs our new bodies, he's going to use just the bones. And that's why Joseph was so adamant about them getting his bones out of that place, and when they leave, he said, take my bones with you, And so when Yeshua came, and the scripture was clear that when he died on Passover, the graves opened up, because everybody that had been waiting on him was that waiting on him in faith and was worthy to be resurrected. He took their bones and reconstructed body for their resurrection. That's why the graves opened up, and he's going to do the same for us as well. If we're in the grave and our body's the king, he said flesh and blood can't enter into the kingdom, but he's going to use our bones to reconstruct that new body.
Yeah, because I found it amazing that not one bone was broken on Christ, with all the abuse he dealt with. So I knew there was a significant importance to that, and I just wanted to understand the relation. Thank you.
Yeah, and when you study like the priesthood, right? Any imperfection physically, this was because he was showing us in the natural spiritual principles. So to qualify for the priesthood, you couldn't have any imperfection. Couldn't have like a broken nose or a nose that had been broken or anything like that. So because it pointed to imperfection. So he was fulfilling the whole of the law. And so he couldn't have those type of imperfections, on him, broken bones or anything like that. So.
Right. So it's like they were able to destroy the outside in a sense, but not the inside, meaning his spirit.
Right.
And yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So his outside was perfect, but he used his perfection to take on all of our sins and things. And so, but he had to be perfect before it was piled on to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, James, you.
Did all that talking to me? You didn't hear me. If I'm going off, feel free. I was looking in the Psalms this morning, and one of them said, I desire, instead of burnt offerings, I'm paraphrasing, instead of burnt offerings and fat offerings, he said, I want obedience rather than sacrifice. So that was my project today, to find out, to dig deeper into that. So I brought out all the word studies and all. And I came to find out that that word in sacrifices, the concept is I'm doing a lot of things to know and understand, to get a more of an intimacy with the Most High. He's been working with me on let him who boasts, boast in this, that he knows me. So I've taken on that I'm wanting to know him better. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up and listening to my precious brothers and sisters and their talks about, I'm searching them out, and then someone who seems older, more knowledgeable, he's the elder of the church or she's the mother of the church, et cetera, when they come along with something, I have a word from the Lord for you or whatever, when we're younger, tend to get more excited. Oh, sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so or elder so-and-so, they got a word, and we're more likely to do that, like children. And so in one of my cross references, it came to, it'll make sense in a minute. It came to Matthew. I'm gonna start at Matthew 11:25. And it says, at that time, Yeshua said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned and revealed them to little children. And then he goes on and he says, yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. Now that kind of goes into First Corinthians, I think it's chapter 2, and it was talking about how the Greeks desired knowledge and the Hebrews desired signs. But Yeshua was saying it's the little children that are seeking things. And because when we were first coming, in my opinion, we're first coming to know or want to know or get that relationship so we can know about him, so we can do those things that we think we need to do in order to establish that relationship. That's why we can get trapped into that listening for that word or listening, hearing these voices that's telling us to do whatever, rather than really trying to be still and seeing what Yah wants to reveal to us. But going on, it says, all things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows this, the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Then, now I'm getting to the good part. He said, he being Yeshua, said, come to me, all you who are wearied and burdened, and I will give you rest. He said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. But I found in my own life experiences, the minute that I stopped seeking out, but resting in his finished work, and then learning to know him in an intimacy, rather than working for him, but resting in the fact that in his time and in his way, as long as that's the desire of my heart, because he said he'll give me the desire of my heart. So start putting those scriptures these revelations, the secret things belong to Yah, but those things revealed to us belong to us and our descendants. If we can kind of rest, that Shabbat rest for the people of God, that Shabbat rest meaning stop working to find it. This is what this study does for me. It keeps me to the place that I've done all this work, and really says, okay, now when you're ready to rest, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Look at the examples that we've given in the first 4 books. I mean, Paul was a wonderful, I really understand, I get more insight, but the insight you get from just studying how Yeshua did it and who he did it with, and understanding what was going on, the whole totality of it, just that alone. It says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle. He's not a hard taskmaster, and humble in spirit. And you will find rest for your souls. Souls, the emotions of, oh, I got to do it, I got to do it. That rest, that Shabbat rest we can have. He said, for my yoke is easy and my burdens are light. Not that we don't have problems. I'm not even talking about what we're going to strifes and stuff. That's a whole nother program. What I am encouraging and encouraging is that sometimes, and I'm not saying, I guess I am kind of saying, sometimes as we're trying to, as we're walking the walk of and getting that relationship more, we put ourselves in our own bondages because we're not resting in the finished work of Yeshua. And I think that for me, it goes back to let him who boast in this, that he knows me, that he knows me. That me is one of the blessings of coming, and this is it, this is my last paragraph. One of the blessings of coming to this study for me has always been the teaching enables me to see Yeshua in everything I read. My Bible is totally different now, because when I read something, I'm looking for Yeshua. I'm looking for something about his character, something about his nature, something he wants to teach me from the things that are around me. But my focus, my fixture is Yeshua, not on myself or my own actions, because if I do that, then I'm in really trouble. But if I could get past me, my strengths, my whatever, and focus on Yeshua, I think that's when I start to see myself grow. And so again, this was just to encourage, hopefully, that was my intention. My motivation was to encourage. Understand that as you keep searching, looking, the focus on him in the word, and what you focus on him, these different words, he'll give you the ability to test the spirits more, to see if you'll see if they line up here. And you won't need anyone to give you a word. You're just the Ruach that he gave us. I'm going to send you a teacher. That's what he said in John. He said, it's needful for I go, because if I don't go, he won't come. But he will be your teacher, and he'll take from me and he'll show you. Those are promises that he has given us. So if we could take that to heart, again, I'm really trying to encourage, you could take that to heart, I think it will make the road we walk a little easier. Done.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's good stuff. And like I said, when we start talking about the sacrifices, I think, like you were saying, one of the things that he was correcting us on is that we focus on the ritual of the sacrifice at that time. And he was saying, no, I need you to focus. My whole thing was, I want your heart. Right. And he said, when you understand that the sacrifice that I made was so that I could get your heart. Y'all get what I'm saying? He said, so he was telling David, you know, and David had messed up and he had slept with Bathsheba and all that stuff. And but at the end of the day, he was like, you know, if you're gonna come to him with a broken and a contrite heart. He said, then when you come to him with a broken and a contrite heart, that means that you understand how flawed you are. You understand the mistakes you made, and you understand that you can't stand on your own. You understand that you really deserve the pits of hell, but by his grace and his mercy, he provided a sacrifice for you. So if I ignore the contamination even of my own heart before I go present the sacrifice, then the sacrifice is null and void. If I don't examine myself so that I can use the sacrifice to place my cares upon the sacrifice, then it's null and void. So I have to examine myself, understand the position that I'm in, so that the sacrifice then can be of value. So he said, it's the heart first. I need you to come with a broken and a contrite heart, understanding what you've done and the mistakes that you made in the position that you were in before I gave you the ability to use my grace and mercy to escape. So, yeah, and it just it gives us that opportunity to rest in his work, like you were saying, just rest in him. And he said, the more we look to him, he says that he changes us from glory to glory, so that the end result is, when we're looking at him all the time, that we're changed into his image, because we're looking at him all the time. Y'all get what I'm saying? And we just begin to change into his image. We don't know what we're going to look like, but he said, we know one thing, we're going to be just like him, and we're going to see him as he truly is, because he's going to change us into his image. And that's why he said all things are working for the good of them who love the Lord, who are the called according to his purpose, who are those who are predestined, he said, to be conformed into the image of his son. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. So yeah, I appreciate that. Anybody else got any comments? All right, good to see everybody. James, Julie, it's great to see you guys again. Just my heart bubbles over when I see you guys. Okay, that's early. Hey, you know, down in there, and I saw something pop up that Judy had lost a grandchild. So y'all keep her in prayer, you know. So everybody's going through challenges and things, and I know she's over in Africa, so just keep her lifted up. Okay. All right, with that being said, let us pray. Father, we just want to thank you for this opportunity to come one more time. Well, thank you for your grace and your mercy, for you opening yourself up to us, and Father, so we might open ourselves up to you. You came and blessed us, which means you kneeled down before us, and now all you asking us to do is to kneel down before you, Father. We want to ask you to continue to touch James and Julie as they go through their health issues. We touch their body, touch their mind, touch their heart, touch their soul. Give them that peace that you said goes beyond all understanding. Father, we ask you to touch Judy as she goes through, the mourning of her grandchild, which is a very difficult time. We ask you to comfort her and know that you said in your promise that you would never leave us, nor would you forsake us. Give her the comfort that she needs, strength that she needs to make it from 1 hour to the next hour. Father, we ask you to forgive us, Father, for the things that we've done. Forgive us, help us to be able to confess those things to you and take advantage of the sacrifice that you have made, the grace and mercy that you have bestowed upon us. Help us not take it for granted. Help us to use it, Father. You said if we judge ourselves, we shall not be judged. So, Father, give us the mind and the heart to be able to see the flaws in ourselves, so we might give those things over to you. Father, help us to treat each other the way you would have us to treat one another. Help us to love like you want us to love. Help us to walk like you want us to walk, talk like you want us to talk, so that when the world looks at us, they see something peculiar. They see something that's different, and they know that we have been with you. So we ask you, Father, to go prepare the way for the rest of this week, Father. Go ahead of us, and around every corner where there's an enemy waiting to destroy us, Father, we ask you to go ahead and prepare that way and defeat the enemy on our behalf, even ahead of time, Father, because we believe that you have the authority and the power to do just that. So be amongst us as we go, anoint all of our households from the top of our heads, soles of our feet. Help us to see you in every move and everything that we make, Father. We know it's in you that we live, in you that we move, and in you that we have our very being. We just want to thank you once again in your son Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. All right. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you.
Shalom. Thank
Shalom.
you.
Week.